unfortunately. Today's episode is going to help us to fortify that relationship, which is most important above all else, so that it becomes a rock and not something that you lose during these changing economic times. And I have with me a very special guest whose forte is in helping people to strengthen their marriage. I'm thrilled to have him here today. This is an episode you're not going to want to miss. The big question is this: how do those of us in the real estate industry with crazy amounts of ambition, how do we think bigger than the building of our own empires? How do we simultaneously seek success and significance, income and impact? My name is Justin Stoddard, and this is the Think Bigger Real Estate Show. Again, welcome back to the Think Bigger Real Estate Show. Thrilled to have you here. Today's guest has become a very dear friend of mine. I'll introduce him now. His name is Amir Fathizedah. Amir, such a pleasure to have you here, my friend.
It's good to see you, my friend. Thanks for having me.
Of course. I'm excited to get into this topic, but I need to give our guests, or I should say our audience, a better idea of your background. So I know you, Amir, have been a transformational leader for over 20 years. I've been able to hear some of your teachings and the ways in which you've impacted other people. And it's not insignificant what you've done. I know you're also a speaker and an author of the book Gossip, The Road to Ruin. I've read the book. It's a fantastic book for anybody wanting to improve their company or even organizational culture. You're an executive coach, a leadership coach, a relationship and couples coach, and excited to have you come in and share with us really why some unfortunate things happen during challenging times. So looking back the year 2007, 2008, right? The Great Recession is happening. Really, the markets are crumbling. You'd think at that time that home life would become such a rock and such a center when people's professional lives were crumbling all around them. Unfortunately, add insult to injury, at the same time that those professional things were crumbling, their home life was also crumbling. We want to get into that. Also during the pandemic, I've got a number of coaching clients who said, Justin, I've never seen so many divorces. That during this time, I'm selling so many homes of people who were once married, happily married, and now they're not. So really, Amir, I really brought you on here today because the mission of this show, the Think Bigger Real Estate Show, is not just to teach about building a successful business. It's that and doing it while creating a significant life. And if anybody's married or has aspirations to be married, realize that one relationship is so critical to having a significant life. And very, very excited to have you here. So let's just get right into this, Amir, and talk about why during challenging economic times does the one relationship that we probably need to be strong the most, why is it oftentimes exposed and failing?
Yes, absolutely, Justin. One of the things that happens when couples face challenging time is mainly due to stress. And stress can be divided in several different sections. But let's look at this for a moment. During the pandemic, in the last 3 years, and this year is a little bit better, but not a whole lot, there has been 95% increase in divorces in Britain. In the United States has been about 34%. So is in China. With all the restrictions and situation they had that they dealt with pandemic, is the same, and so is in Sweden. So what happens when a situation of this nature occurs in the society? At first, people feel, oh, great. I get to work from home. I get to spend more quality times with the family and my spouse. But after a while, as situation in the society with pandemic gets, becomes worse, that starts to create a certain kind of stress, such as the couples start to argue or have disagreement about the social distancing or getting together with friends, or if one of them becomes ill with virus, then they start sleeping in the separate rooms. They start to have disagreement how to go about it. What do we do with the kids vaccinations? Should the kids be homeschooled or should they go to school? I mean, there is a whole bunch of new conversations comes up, and especially if the couples don't have that strong bond of communication with each other, they start to create a distance, and this distance slowly gets bigger, and at some point they say to themselves, this marriage is not working. And they become in a situation that is unfortunate, and the easier route that they see is, well, this relationship is over. Let's get divorced and let's move on with something else. It is nothing really has changed as far as people getting divorced, because people ultimately want to be happy. And when they find in a household situation, things are not working the way they want to, they become unhappy, and boom, they start to look at a different route out. But the situation with the pandemic, because it forces people to be together all the time, that increased, based on what I just said, that extra stress, especially people who have children, and for the most part, if they're both working from home, majority of the work happens on women shoulder, and it's unfortunate to say that 70% of the divorces are initiated by women, compared to 60%, last year, and the year, before. So, if you look at all this different kind of stress that is related to pandemic and the virus, that it just builds up, and lots of couples do not know how to work around it.
Well, I think it's really interesting principles, because as I mentioned, this same thing happened in 2008. And the common thread that I see is that you have new stressors, you have new challenges and new situations, and the couple are not communicating on how they're going to work through that together. And obviously the pandemic was much more a thing in 2020 than it is now, but we're now entering into an economic recession. The audience that I serve is the real estate industry, and we are seeing a quick slowdown when it comes to the real estate industry. I would say more of a back to a normal market as opposed to a depressed market. But nevertheless, it's different. It's different than it has been in previous years. And these same underlying stressors, or rather different stressors, but now similar circumstances, where a couple is either faced with having to potentially deal with a spouse working different hours, potentially longer hours, potentially having delayed income coming into the house because homes are taking longer to sell. Again, new circumstances that are new added stressors into a family. And we have the potential to have what otherwise could be amazing marital relationships that will unfortunately suffer and die because they can't overcome these new challenges. So part of why I wanted to bring this to this audience is because those that know me know that family is my highest priority in life. And again, I believe strongly that there is no work that is greater than the work that we'll do within the walls of our own home. And that becomes a microcosm for what we go do out in the world. That if we can create very success and significance inside the home, it gets easier to go do it outside of the home. Whereas if our relationships at home are stressed and somewhat defunct, it acts as an anchor to our progress professionally. And I think anybody that's been through a divorce will realize that it can be very debilitating, very challenging emotionally, financially, and many other ways. And so my aim here is to give all of us principles through our dear friend Amir here as to what we can do to now overcome these maybe new stressors that are showing up that, again, kind of reared in a maybe different light during the pandemic, but are now here as a result of an economic recession, increased inflation, et cetera. So I want to get into this now, Amir. What are some things that couples can and should be doing in order to strengthen their marriage?
That's a great question, Justin. So when couples do not have proper communication, it is like a pressure cooker. If a pressure cooker does not have a way to release the pressure, at some point will explode. So if you look at a relationship, in a relationship, if there is not proper communication, and it will get to a point that will explode, and the couples don't know what to do about it. So the first thing that is really important is being able to identify the problem. What is the challenge here? Is it really the economy? Is it really the pandemic? Is it the money? Is it the kids? What is it that actually is causing this conflict? And with that comes the way to communicate. Lots of people feel that we can communicate. Talking is a form of communication, but actually talking about something and doing, the proper way of talking is the key. So if the couples are communicating each other, the first step is to be able to bring a new level of empathy in the conversation. So what does that mean? If I have a situation going on, an argument, disagreement, what have you, with my spouse, the first thing to do to be able to put my view, let's say about masks or with social gathering or what have you, put my view aside and be able to put myself in the spouse's shoes to really see if I can understand where they're coming from and how they are feeling. So then, that will arise a new level of empathy and compassion that perhaps can start a new, level of communication, rather than I want to prove my point, you want to prove, your point, and usually those kind of conversation go nowhere. So that by doing that level of, bringing out that level of empathy, it requires really deep listening. We have to be realistic. We human beings do not listen. We do not listen to what's been said. More often than enough, we listen to what we want to hear, especially when it comes to couples who have lived together for a long time or known each other. It's that, listening creates different kind of filters based on the, conversation and the past experiences. Therefore, when we're able to actually get present and listen to what the spouse or the partner is saying, it creates a new level of communication. Okay, I can understand that. I can put my view aside. But let's have a logical conversation, not an emotional conversation about it. And that's what happens when people become emotional and become defensive. What they want to do is protect their viewpoint. And usually those kind of conversations go nowhere. Usually in life, in a relationship, three things causes issues. If two of the three are working, the third one usually can be worked out. If two of the three are not working, it takes a much harder work to get done. And those three are: one is communication, proper communication, and not just talking. Two is finances, a money situation between couples, and third one is sex. And that the third one might not be as important as people get older, but definitely it is an important factor in the younger people. So my advice to people who are listening to this podcast is, first of all, identify, really get to the source of why is it that I'm having an issue with my partner? Where is it initiating from? And second, let me see if I can take responsibility for my view, how I'm looking at this, and take the initial step to say, okay, I want to listen to what you have to say. I'm really committed to make this marriage work, this relationship work. Let's see if we can look at the positive, what I agree with you, not what I disagree with you. And that's what happens. Most people focus on what they disagree about, not what they actually agree about. So there's lots of different approach to go about this, but I found this, being able really to get to the bottom and start a new level of communication, they can actually transform the relationship.
Yeah, I think a couple things stand out to me here, Amir, is that it really does come down to communication, and not just communicating, but having empathetic communication is what really stood out to me about what you said, of actually wanting to be married to your spouse more than you want to be married to your own idea. Sometimes our ego gets in the way of us having genuine connection and empathy for other people. And what I hear you saying is that we need to listen, not to check it off the box that, yeah, I'm listening, I heard you, as maybe can be the tone at times when we get impatient because they're not agreeing with us. But instead of like genuine curiosity, like, tell me how you're feeling. Now tell me why you're feeling that way. Like those kinds of conversations, I would say for me personally in my marriage have taken time for us to develop, to really, for us to put our guard down. I'm not attacking you. I'm just very, I'm very interested in kind of where you're coming from. Right. And I know my wife and I just this past weekend, we spent a night over at the Oregon coast. I know you're familiar with that, Amir. And
Yes.
it was an awesome experience. We're raising 6 children, right? 6 kids of our own. And so there's a lot of work that goes upon my wife and upon me. But just like you said before, she carries much of the weight of that. As I'm focused on working, building a business, she's really focused on the day-to-day, being the CEO of the household. And it was interesting to me that of all the things that she wanted, she just wanted some one-on-one time with me. She wanted, 2-hour drive to the coast, 2-hour drive back, a long walk on the beach. And it's like nothing too crazy. She just wanted to be heard. She just wanted to have some time where she wasn't always answering to the requests of small children, but was being heard and listened to. So everything you're saying here is very much resonating with me from just this past weekend's experience. So I love what you're saying here. This empathetic communication is it sounds easy. It can be hard if you don't practice, if you don't actually have a genuine curiosity and desire to want to hear them. So I love that. What are some other things that people can do to strengthen their marriage, Amir?
So being able to create, as you just mentioned, getting away with her for a night. I mean, this is really a key. Being able to create time to spend quality time together. Either getting out, going places, or just have a romantic dinner, just the two of you. If you have kids, have them be with the grandparents, have them be a babysitter, or just, be creative to create those kind of opportunities that the two of you really can talk and discuss, without being, bothered or, interfere with. Uh, and I think that would start to create that kind of level of, communication that we've been talking about. And it is important. So most people, when they get away and they want to spend quality time, they still have a hard time actually communicating. It is good to spend, time together, being together, maybe, perhaps watch some quality shows or what have you, but being able to speak to each other in a very new way. When I say new way, meaning a respectful way, being able to recognize your partner, respect your partner, especially their point of, view, care. The caring is really nice. So I know, the male might be working all day, uh, and might be tired. You could just imagine the women that spend all the day taking care of the family, taking the house in order, perhaps preparing meals and all of that. I promise you, sometimes most of us, when we think, oh, we're doing too much, if we start to put ourselves in other person's shoes, we might actually recognize that they are doing way more than, what we do, and perhaps they carry much more stress. So, having that and being able to create a, let's say, a date night or whatever you want to call it, or just simple having a, nice quality dinner together and talk about things. Talk about without, disagreeing. Talk about it in a respectful way, in a loving way. Show affections. Come home with some kind of recognitions once in a while to really appreciate, your partner. It can be very small present. It can be a note. It can be some flower. Anything that really recognizes and acknowledges your partner for who she or he is or who or she is not. I think it can take the relationship completely to a new way, because then they will start to feel, oh, I'm not alone in this relationship. I have a partner, and I am glad and I'm happy to be with this partner.
I love that. I think it's interesting what you're saying here. In my mind, I'm reflecting upon some of the coaching that I give some of my private clients. So in my book, The Upstream Model, for those that haven't read it, I teach real estate agents specifically, although it applies to other professionals as well, how to grow and scale a warm market business through strategic partnerships. In other words, individuals, other professionals who can send you a lot of referrals in a hurry. And I think about my advice to them is to find a way to be valuable in that professional's business every week. And when you think about how much more a marital relationship is, even over a strategic business partner or business referral partner, how much more valuable the marriage is. Are we making time to do this practice that you're describing, Amir, every week, right? If we knew that business relationship had the ability to make us hundreds of thousands of dollars every year, we would prioritize that. And my question to you is not just a financial standpoint, although one could make that argument as well as the cost of divorce, but from a pure altruistic love for that other person, making them your queen or your king, depending on who they are. Are we making time? Are we making that a priority? Are we actually committing to a certain night of the week or a certain day of the month in which we're actually going out of town, or maybe day of the quarter, whatever it is for you, and actually making that person a priority and setting our ego aside and giving gratitude that should be happening every day, by the way, but really taking time to let them know how much they're appreciated through our attention and our time. It's beautiful principles that you're teaching us on how to go about communicating. What do you feel like, Amir? Have you found a good kind of cadence of whether it be these couple conversations where a couple is having these authentic conversations, as far as date nights, as far as trips and vacations? Is there something that you found to be kind of a good simple formula for people to look to?
Yeah, absolutely. And actually, I have tons of questions that couples can use to initiate conversation, especially talking about some of the could be members of families in the past. It could be the interest each partner might have that they like to explore. Where do you see our relationship 10 years from now? Honey, what do you think? Where will it be 5 years from now? What our life will look like. How will our relationship be 5 years from now, 10 years from now? You see, when people start to train their brain to be creative in generating, the ideas, and keep, or continue keeping the relationship new and fresh, it is more enjoyable. Because most people, after they've been married or after they've been with partner for a certain period of time, they feel, oh, it's not the same. I wonder what happened that they start going that direction, and after a while they see a distance that doesn't seem to be like it used to be. So being able to generate new ideas, and by looking at to the future and then working backward, okay, what is my relationship will look like 3 years from now? What my relationship will look like 3 months from now? What our relationship will look like a month from now? Hey, what's my relationship look like tomorrow? What can I do on my part that I can make this relationship really exciting? The moment that I go home, or the moment I see my spouse and I start to interact with her or him, what is gonna come out of my mouth that is going to be different? That actually might inspire them. It might motivate them. Wow, this is wonderful. I love being around the kids, and I love to be, around you and being with you. So when you start to having that kind of, a level of communication and affection, it starts to just, the relationship starts to have a new future. And as you practice it more and more, it becomes more and more creative. And therefore, and it will be great to surprise each other with different things. I remember my wife, one night really surprised me by coming home, and she has created a whole house like a tropical, and had a real tropical drinks made, beautiful dress on, and all of that. That's creative. Anything that just really motivates, acknowledge, and appreciate your partner is an idea, and there is no wrong or a right way of doing it.
And very interesting to think about the effort that we put into things. When I hear that story of your wife, right, who's really went to a lot of effort to surprise you, to create something
Absolutely.
unique. I think about what you're teaching us here when it comes to having a very rich personal relationship. And it reminds me of very similar principles, again, when you're developing key business relationships. And oftentimes it's easier for us to get creative in the business world because there's a dollar and cents attached to it, right? And sometimes we tend to take for granted the relationships that are at home, and we think that they'll always be there, and that they'll always be fine and good. And we may look back, like you said, and realize that it actually wasn't, and now we have an issue. And I'm, reminded of a simple framework that I teach when it comes to building these consultative strategic partnerships. It's a 3-part framework. It's number 1, we identify the goal. Number 2, we identify what's the plan. And number 3, what needs do we have to make that plan work towards getting us to the goal? And I hear you describing that to some degree, right? As you identify what is the goal, what's the vision that we're working towards together, what are we creating together, and what's our plan, how are we going to get there, and then what needs do we have to assess. So it's really interesting how these human relationships, whether they be personal or business, there's a lot of very similar principles at the core of how we show up in an intentional way, in a big way that makes people drawn to us and want to keep us in their world, right? Whether it be a personal marital or whether it be a strategic, referral partner. I love it. It's great. When it comes to finances, Amir, I'd love to spend a little time on that because people right now are having to be very intentional and very effortful in order to keep their income where it has been in previous years. Now, although the income coming in may be the same, the outgoing may be more because of inflation, right? We're experiencing record level inflation to where there's more of a pinch on people's households. Give us some ideas of what can go wrong and maybe how to avoid that when it comes to the financial conversation, the financial piece in a marriage.
Sure. The main problem that may occur in our finances is perhaps overspending and not having enough budget for certain things. So one partner might be making more than the other partner, or it could be all kind of disagreement about how the finances should be spent. Therefore, creating a structure and creating a budget for everything, determining exactly what the cost of living in the house is, from all the utility bills to house payment and what have you, and then what budget you're gonna have for everything that you're gonna do. If you have children, create budgets for the expenses for the children. If you have date nights, create a budget for the date nights. If you schooling, same for schooling, entertainment. So when you create that budget, the key is to have discipline to stay with it. And lots of people don't have that kind of discipline, therefore they overspend and they go out of the budget, and by end of the month, it creates conflicts, it creates arguments between the couples. Therefore, give each other your word that you can hold each other accountable. So I'll hold you accountable, you hold me accountable, that we are going to stay with this budget, and and we are not gonna exceed it. Therefore, when there's agreements, and inside the agreements there is structures, then I think the relationship can work really well, especially both honor the agreement and stay with it. So that is probably one of the best advices that I have given, and it's been very successful when actually couples start to follow that structure. And and they say they can sit down logically, work it out. And another part of this is being able to save for the future. So for the children's future, education, and the couples when the children are gone and when perhaps they retired and what have you. So when I mentioned starting to create that 10-year vision, you start to create that long term about finances as well. What is life is going to look like after all the children are gone and we are, I don't know, 60 years old, 65 years old. Well, what are we going to have? Where do we want to live? What kind of life do we want to have? So it's really important to be able to create that kind of a structure and budget and be able to save for the future.
I love that, Amir, because the term budget oftentimes makes many people's skin crawl. They're not good at it. And what I heard you just describe is that if you can attach the budget, which is kind of the tactical stuff we've got to do now, to a bigger vision of, hey, let's let's stay within this budget so that we can, all of a sudden it gets a lot more exciting, especially when both sides of the couple are committed to that thing. I believe you've given us a secret there to really make that a lot more fun. And typically when things are more fun, they're more likely to get done, right? If every time we say, "Oh, hey, let's review our budget so that we can see if we're on track to buying that vacation home here or having this retirement over here," right? When we can tie it to that, I feel uh, for me personally, that'd be a lot more exciting than just comparing spreadsheets versus, budgeted versus actuals can get pretty boring. But when you can tie it to something bigger than that, I love that. And it's probably true of everything mundane in life. If you can say, "Hey, this isn't necessarily the most fun thing, but we're doing this so that we can do the fun thing," all of a sudden the not so fun thing becomes more fun, at least. Um,
Yeah.
One thing that I want to do before we go any further, Amir, is I want to tell people about something really cool that you're doing that is a retreat. In fact, there's a couple of things here that I want to tell people about. Is that at Amir's website, there's a free ebook about strengthening your marriage. So I'm going to put this in the show notes. You'll have it here for those that are watching live. If you're watching the podcast, be sure to go to my website, thinkbiggerre.com, click on podcast, and you'll see Amir's episode there, and this link will be there waiting for you. But you'll not only have access to that ebook, but you'll also see a couples retreat that he's doing in Mexico, April 15th through the 22nd. 22nd happens to be my anniversary, Amir. So you've got my wheels turning here in the year 2023. So if you're watching this after the fact, then it might be, you might have missed that, but I'm sure Amir will have planned another one. But again, Mexico couples retreat, April 15th through the 22nd, the year 2023. I'm going to put that again in the show notes. This link will get you to both the ebook as well as this couples retreat. And at this couples retreat, talk to us a little bit about what people will experience, Amir.
Before I talk about that, Justin, a couple more things about finances. Couples don't have to have a huge, budget for having a good time, or they don't necessarily have to buy a big thing for each other to surprise each other. They don't have to go to a fancy restaurant to have a quality date night. They can create that romance in the house in a nice setting. They can even leave little notes acknowledging, appreciating, loving their partner, rather than buying certain presents. So having said that, retreat. When I talk about the retreat, I get excited because it is in a beautiful, environment at a beautiful resort. This is going to be all exclusive resort, which means it only has rooms for 10 couples. So myself and my wife will be one, so 9 couples. So this retreat is really consists of 18, people plus the 2 of us. So it would be very, how do I say it? Very unique in a way that is going to be presented, because there's going to be a 4.5 days of quality workshop. And this workshop is granted to alter anyone's relationship, a relationship that might not be working or might not working as well as they would like it to, or perhaps they just want to take that relationship to a new level. All the meetings will be set up under the tent outside, right by the water. It's going to just so it be, and the quality of the material that I am presenting also is going to be very unique for the retreat. I would actually like to call it more like a workshop. So there'll be lots of great conversation and tools that I'll be given to the couples to how to communicate with each other, to how to go about really creating romance in a relationship and making a relationship exciting. This retreat also is catered by some of the quality chefs. So all the food will be catered to the person's diet, from vegan to vegetarian to gluten-free, you name it, whatever that your dietary is, it will provide that. So it's going to be a beautiful time. And the last couple of days, the couples are on their own to do whatever they please. To then when they come back, they actually feel not they just have transformed the relationship, but they have also had a vacation, and will be. My promise is that it will be memorable for the rest of their lives. So it is a really exciting time.
I love it. You've given us some amazing insight here, Amir. This episode has gone longer than typical, but I think it's for good reason. This is of extreme high importance and priority. That again, a marriage that is crumbling will act as an anchor to every other area of life that you are wanting to experience growth. On the contrary, a marriage that is deeply intentional, on fire, has the ability to fortify you against outside headwinds and really give you a foundation on which you can do incredible things and experience incredible growth in every other area of your life. I just encourage you that if you, regardless of where your marriage is at, whether it's on fire right now or whether it's like on fire in a good way, like it's good, or it's crumbling, I believe it's worth attending to, and it's worth pouring value and intention and effort into. And when you do that out of a sincere desire to serve the other person, amazing things can happen. I can say that I am such a better man and such a better version of me because of my marriage, because of who my wife helps me to become. This episode was very important to me. And Amir, you're again a very dear friend of mine. I'm grateful to all the value that you bring into your specific space in the world in general. So thank you for being such a great mentor to many. Let me ask you this final question, Amir, which is this: you are a big thinker. You are somebody who is constantly stretching your own possibilities. What is it that Amir does to continue to grow your possibilities, to continue to expand your thinking, to be a bigger thinker? What does that look like for you?
What makes me really have that level of thinking and have inspiration in my life is when I start to make my life about others. Everything that I do, including my wife, every little thing that I do, and being able to keep that word of divorce out of the vocabulary. I give my word that this is going to be the rest of my life. So keep reminding ourselves, if I am responsible for everything that I do and everything that happens around me, I don't go around blaming. There's no reason to blame someone else for what is happening in anything that is happening in life, including in the relationship. So being able to take the steps, make a difference on whenever possible. That is really what inspires me, and that is why I came up with this retreat. And I think I just want it to be really a contribution that people can really look and say, hey, I can make this relationship work. I can create a beautiful marriage. Let's get that word out of our vocabulary, and let's be an inspiration for each other. That's how I try to live my life.
I love it, Amir. I think at the core of any failed relationship or failed anything, it's typically begins with a lack of personal responsibility. And at the center of all things that are working typically is somebody who's taken responsibility and admitted the fact that their actions have a direct impact upon the way things are turning out. And when people do that, both in marriage as well as in business and everything else, it becomes a real accelerant for growth. So thank you for reminding us of that. Such a pleasure to have you on here. I want to thank you so much for coming on and pouring into us. And my final request of everybody listening here today are these three simple words, and they are: go think bigger. Amir, thanks for helping us do that today, my friend. If you enjoyed this episode, then I have a very special invitation for you. I've created a private Facebook community called Successful Real Estate Agents, where the focus is going beyond success, having both a successful business and a significant life. If you're not yet a member, go sign up now.